Reddit, what was your first political opinion that was different from your parents'? The issue of privacy. Their stance is, if you're a good citizen, then you've got nothing to hide, and while I agree to that to some extent, giving the government access to all of your data and privacy is just a recipe for disaster. Everything about the environment. I think we should consider nature and the environment, whereas my parents only think about economic consequences. Bang 'em with the climate change will cause long run aggregate supply to fall. I like white people. I'm SE Asian and Filipino. Lol, I don't have neg stereotypes about white people either, which pee my parents off. I am Indian. Pro gay marriage. My mom still think gay people need to be sent to mental asylum. Then again, she also said that ugly, short, and flat-breasted people shouldn't be able to procreate legally, so I've learned a few coping mechanisms dealing with her. I can only talk to her for 15 minutes and the whole time I'm mentally going to my happy place because for some reason she would say the most infuriating thing. I'm not sure if this is really a political opinion, but it is the first time it became apparent that I didn't have the same attitude as my dad. I was probably around 8 or 9 years old and we had been learning about Native Americans in school. My dad made a comment to the effect of how weird it was that they believe everything has a spirit. And I thought, I don't think that's weird. That makes sense to me. Thus, my little pagan heart was born. I realize this is a gross generalization. Interracial dating. First kid I liked in school was black. My mother made a comment that still infuriates me 15 years later. I hadn't ever told her whom I see. If I do, she doesn't know my friends. The necessity of taxation to improve civic buildings. In our case, my school kept failing to get new levies passed to maintain several programs at the school. My dad always complained about having to pay more in property tax, but I argued that he was helping to pay for the school that my siblings and I attended. Eventually they killed the bus services off and he hated having to drive me to school every morning, but he never said anything about the levy again. Exactly this. Or, when a school cuts the music program after budget cuts, and people complain about that, you had your choice to keep it, and you voted no. My own parents voted against the levy, and then balked when they cut gym half the year, and gutted beginners band and orchestra at the elementary level. Couldn't believe their ears. When I was very young, I thought that I should be king of the world. I don't think my parents would have agreed. Believe it or not, interracial couples. It seems like this should have been okay with everyone by the time we got to the 90s, but my mom still disagreed with it and would make a disparaging remark every time an interracial couple was on TV or if she saw one in public. Black men with white women specifically. My mill has this issue as well, but with a twist. She thinks that interracial couples are disgusting, but only if one person is black and the other white. In fact, she insists that is the only kind of interracial couple that exists. Her husband is white and she's Asian, but her marriage is not interracial in her mind. Gay marriage. Turns out I am a little gay. That black people were people worthy of doing things people like to do. Ugh, when Obama was elected, my mom said, I can't believe US has a black president. What a disgrace. I think I rolled my eye so deep that it was looking at the back of my head. Probably started when my best friend was a Muslim, taking away that whole all Muslims are terrorists thing. My parents are anti-Semitic. Got to learn that when I mentioned my best friend at the time was Jewish. That people on benefits are not scum of the earth and have just fallen on hard times. Thankfully, my parents came around to this way of thinking after I had a mental breakdown and was on them. That the other side is worth listening to. My parents are both staunch liberals, and I am too. The difference, though, is that they always vote straight blue, no questions asked. If somebody has an R next to their name, they are automatically bad, according to my parents. My dad more so than my mom, but mom does still vote that way. I, on the other hand, am willing to read up on the Republican candidates' opinions and legislative history with an open mind, and I'm willing to look at the Democrats with a critical mind. I haven't actually voted for any Republicans, though at just 20 years old, I don't have the largest sample size, but at least I'm willing to consider it. When I first thought I should have a political opinion, I'm not entirely sure, to be honest. My dad's very conservative, and I'm very liberal. I think the first thing we openly disagreed about were trans issues. But I honestly don't know if that's because he is becoming more conservative or if he's becoming more vocal and I never noticed his views when I was younger. I discovered anarcho-capitalism in high school and thought I was an enlightened messiah who was saving the proletariat from the evils of capitalism by skipping shul, refusing to eat Pop-Tarts, and screaming obscenities at this one rich kid. I think I mellowed out just a bit. That gays are, in fact, people too. Shocking. Shocking. Don't give Pence any ideas. That radio stations should be uncensored. That no amount of profanity would hurt anyone. For mornings afternoons I assume they do it so parents with kids in the car will still listen to them. Being pro-Obama, my mom always said she was a Democrat until Obama took office. Turns out she's xenophobe and was only a fan of Bill Clinton. There are differences between progressives like Obama and blue dog Democrats like Clinton. When I was a kid, I wanted to take taekwondo lessons with my best friend. My dad wouldn't let me because I was Japanese, and he said they would hurt me because they're Korean. Seemed kind of dumb to me. Actually giving a crap about politics at all. Both my parents are almost entirely apathetic. My mother's husband was just questioning whether or not Obama was a Muslim sleeper agent, and then my mother started talking about how Obama wouldn't defend Israel. I was born and raised Jewish but none of us practice anymore. So yeah, that was a fun back and forth. Military non-interventionism. I was for it. My parents were very much into the we need to be everywhere idea. You look like you have oil. You need some liberation eagle scores in the background. Currently climate change, and that crap is scientific. It's like arguing if gravity is real. Evolution is real. That shouldn't be political. Gay rights. Everyone in my family aside from my mom was against gay marriage. Growing up in California taught me the exact opposite of this. Even while attending Catholic school, I didn't even need a grown-up to tell me it was unfair. I knew in my heart and soul gay people deserved to be married just as much as straight people. I remember vacationing in Palm Springs crying my heart out to my family why their opinion hurt me so much. It was a constant argument, me against all of them, for over a decade. Men have changed their minds with the tide, but I still have not come out as bisexual to most of my family. It is easier to hide since I am in a relationship with a man. He's B2 but they don't know that. I think my generation, born late 70s to early 80s, is the breaking point. We were raised to believe that being gay was wrong, but are the first generation to be teaching our kids the opposite. There has been a huge societal shift on the last 15-20 years, and things are getting better. That same gender couples should be allowed to marry and that people of different skin colors should be allowed to practice their culture here. When I turned 18, my mum thought it was time to let me know her political views and thoughts on the world. Turns out, she's anti-vax, anti-government, against gay marriage and rights. Both her sons are gay though, anti-religion and a huge conspiracy theorist. I'm not 100% sure they are all political opinions, but they are definitely different to my own opinions. The gay marriage and rights really hurt me personally, but I realized our views are way too different. Your mom sounds like a whack job outside of the anti-government and anti-religion thing. That cannabis should be legal, as of the 17th of October 2018 in Canada it is. You know, I still haven't had any since. I told my dad that Bush was going to win. I didn't really care one way or another because I was 13. I just had a very strong feeling that he was going to win. My dad got really pee about it, so obviously I kept repeating it over and over all election season. He made it up by calling me Bush's boy for 8 years, so I guess he won that round. Being libertarian, as opposed to right-wing conservative. Hey, I just don't think we should put people in prison for collecting rainwater, you know? Went home for the weekend during college during the Iraq War, was shocked to see how giddy my dad was seeing bomb dropped on Baghdad as part of the shock and awe insanity. Good news now though is that I would have bet my life savings that he would be wearing a MAGA hat. I was so afraid to bring up politics with him in 2016. He loved Palin then Romney, but somehow he could see through Trump's BS and gets visibly disgusted when he appears on TV and has to change the channel. Way to go, Dad. You are so lucky. I am proud of your dad. My mother is 100% anti-gun. She was one of those 1960s progressive liberal types, so I grew up in a household where guns were anathema. Then when I became an adult, I went to a gun range, shot a few dozen rounds from a .22 rifle and had a lot of fun. I still like to shoot at the range every now and then, though I don't hunt because I just don't see the point. But I'm anything but anti-gun. Make no mistake, though, I do support some degree of gun control like background checks. But if someone can prove beyond a shadow of a doubt that they can use a gun carefully and responsibly, they should be allowed to own one. Good for you, man. Don't ban the cars because there are reckless drivers. That's a tricky one for me, TBH. I come from a Tory family and tend to agree with most of but not every one of their policies. I think the only thing that really comes to mind for me right away is Brexit. I voted Remain, whereas my parents were very pro-Brexit, although they rarely talk about it now out of some sort of embarrassment over the whole way it's been handled and the realization that they were lied to, I think. My mom is very radical left and my dad is very hardcore right. Simply being a moderate was disappointing for both of them. When I told my parents I wanted Jill Stein to win the 2016 election, both of their responses were, well, at least it's not Clinton Trump. I'm just wondering how your parents stayed together without ripping each other apart. Similar political views are important to a relationship. Helping those that can't help themselves. Parents are 100% against abortion, but I think if there was debauchery involved it's fine. First opinion that was different was on taxes. They see it as theft. I see it as the price to live in a functioning society. Not much has changed except I'm happy to pay more to expand services. And they are so concerned about estate taxes. They are nowhere near it at all. And with the way my mom spends, will never be. I was raised party line Democrat, served in the military, met a girl way into Ron Paul. She wound up serving on his staff. I know straight libertarian doesn't work, but I ran across the fair tax plan. While obviously that straight up wouldn't work, a much simplified tax code which removes the ability for the massive amount of loopholes would probably work a lot better. Universal healthcare. I am for it. They are against it. I didn't realize we had such polar opposite opinions about it until the conversation got so heated that we had to stop it and cool down. I agree with my mom on most things. It's my dad I have a hard time finding common political ground with. I agree with him on other, non-political things. In that vein, probably gay marriage. When it comes to disagreeing with my mom, probably legalization of drugs. I'm pro both of those things. My parents did not really speak of politics outright. All my knowledge of their beliefs came from bits and pieces over time, as it is an impolite topic in their eyes. Father believed in eugenics firmly, and would sum up his thoughts on the intellect and abilities of various races if you asked. That was probably the first major difference in opinion in our home that was due to opposing views. I still don't believe in eugenics. I don't think human beings work like bean sprouts. Yes, you might be able to breed in certain traits in 51% of offspring someday with enough effort, but I believe it weakens the overall progression of evolution. This sort of selective breeding could see us miss out on an unknown advantage like an immunity to a disease that hasn't manifested yet. The way I see it, we are still scientific infants. Theories exist to be tested, not blindly followed like a pseudo-religion. I'm still liberal, but my parents are super liberal, and I'm not into the whole super politically correct stuff. I don't get offended as much by certain things, and my family is likely the opposite. Realized early on the whole God thing didn't add up. That guns can stay, just with regulations. Define regulations though. Mother is strong left and hasn't stumbled upon me watching a Jordan Peterson video, was not pleased. You have been visited by the wealth rat. Subscribe in 12 seconds and he will share his wealth with you. Like and subscribe, you magnificent person.